Hey, everybody. I have arrived. Ian says, welcome to the alcove where magic awaits. I like that.
Unless I spelled welcome with two L's on purpose.
I noticed. That was on purpose.
Didn't want you to think I was
Spelling
didn't know
it.
how to spell it.
Yep. He likes to spell words differently. One of his things. You should see our shopping list. Sometimes. A bunch of people have shown up, they haven't said hi yet. They're probably all going to say hi at the same time. Jono says, hi guys. Hi, Jono. Welcome. How is it where you are right now? Ian says, and peers out at you from the dark shadows of existence. The magic. Teresa says, does Ian misspell the word for items he really wants or really doesn't want? No, just because he thinks it's funny.
Just because I find it amusing. It's
Yep.
my way of amusing myself. Yeah.
And you can always tell what the word is supposed to be, what he means. He just likes to do creative spelling from time to time. Carla says, yay, I'm so glad you guys are here. Hi, Ian and Siofra. How was your week? It wasn't too bad. I had to go back to the dentist on Wednesday. I got a bit of an infection in my tooth extraction site, and I just finished my antibiotics today, and it's feeling a lot better, so I was glad that I called them up. Violet says, hi guys, wanted to say happy Easter. I cannot stay because I am off to do an ultrasound on Easter. Blessings. Okay, enjoy your ultrasound on Easter.
Happy Easter.
And happy Easter back.
Yeah.
Teresa says he could be the misspeller poet. Yes, he could. And then people would still understand. It'd be sort of like a old English kind of poetry.
Where they spelled everything weird.
Yes.
Because they had no dictionaries yet. Nobody knew how to spell.
And then the F looked like an, or S looks like an F, and there's just like all kinds of interesting letters that they used differently than we do. Actually, can read Old English fairly well at this point. It's kind of interesting.
Well, I was forced to kind of try and learn some of it from reading old alchemy texts, but yeah, they do use words spelling kind of strangely.
Yep. Carla says, I'm sorry to hear, but glad it's clearing up. Yes, me too. Teresa says he could do lots of play on words. Donna says, I'm doing well enough, thanks, Siofra. Season is starting to shift. I can feel winter coming. So are you back down in South Africa then? Not in England anymore? Because winter should not be coming
No,
to England.
We're starting to feel summer coming.
Spring is here, and hopefully summer not far behind. We've had some nice days. Some of them look fabulous, but are freezing cold because the air seems to be coming straight from the Arctic, like right over an ice shelf or something, but at least the sun is out, so that's nice. Carla said I was going to ask if everyone is eating some chocolate, but that might be uncomfortable. I'm kind of pigging out on it.
Chocolate is always good, though.
I love chocolate. I just don't have any right now. Tomorrow will be a good day to buy some chocolate because it'll all be on sale.
Yeah, but there's probably milk chocolate, not the nice dark.
Yeah,
chocolate.
we like the dark.
We like the nice dark.
We like the dark chocolate. Milk chocolate is like, why? Why are you?
Plus, I'm allergic to milk. So
yeah, there's that as well, but
help,
still, we've always been like that, though. We've always liked the dark chocolate better. We're into the bitter end of things when it comes to that. But hey, whatever people do. Apparently, a lot of people are mistaken in thinking that this is Ostara right now because people have been promoting the idea that Ostara and Easter are like related. And considering the fact that it is the spring equinox, which happened in March, is pretty clearly not the same. It's different. I found it interesting going through my feed to see all the happy Ostara blessings, which we are not doing because it's not that. It's a different day altogether. Donna says, I'm hopefully back in the UK later this year on a marriage visitor's visa. A lot of organizing going on. I bet. That's a lot of organizing. And Teresa says, I helped myself to 2 little chocolate eggs at the library counter yesterday. That's my extent of celebrating Easter. Yeah, I have a client who's probably, well, she's probably already been to Mass today. She's Catholic. She was trying to find one that was more her time because she's having a harder time getting up and getting around and stuff like that. So we were talking about that when I saw her Friday.
Yeah, for a while we did a few nice Ostara celebrations around here, but that was when we were still doing groups.
And that would have been
Yeah.
on the spring equinox, not on Easter.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. It's fun.
Yeah, no, but you reach a certain age and you kind of had your fill of group rituals and stuff because with all the people issues.
Yep.
Speaking for myself, anyway. Yeah.
I still like the idea of groups, but
Well, I do too.
personalities are.
The reality is usually different than the idea as far as
Yep.
in my opinion.
Positive projections.
Yep.
We have hopes and dreams when it comes to that.
It is a good way to amass a lot of power if you can get everybody on the same page. But that's
Even
the
for
hard
5
part.
minutes.
Yeah.
5 minutes on the same page gets wonders done.
Yeah.
Your bunny hide any eggs for you? Could he afford them? No, he did not hide any eggs for us. He is so cute, though. He really is. He's just been bouncing around like a bunny lately.
Yeah, it's just so cute when he runs around your feet. He gets happy to see us when we come in the room, and he runs around our feet like crazy, and it's really cute.
Runs around in circles, and then he changes directions, and sometimes he goes between our feet and makes these
Does
eights,
figure eights. Yeah.
figure eights, and just like bouncing around. And yeah, he was pretty active this morning.
Yep.
And then they jump in place sometimes, the binkies, where they just sort of suddenly pop up out of nowhere.
Or like spin 180
spin.
degrees with no warning, just like boom, they're facing the other direction instantly.
Yep, practicing, getting away.
Jump up and spin in the air.
Yep.
Jump at the cat and scare the bejesus out of the cat.
Yeah,
Happens occasionally.
He's pretty easy to startle. But it is pretty funny, the eggs and stuff. Where is the toilet paper? Thank you. I need to touch my nose. I did take some antihistamines, still have allergies. Jen says, hello everyone, happy Easter. Hi Jen. Carla says, I just think of it as a celebration of spring and a reason to eat chocolate. I made some bomb-ass pickled eggs and beets, though. Cool.
I like
Teresa
pickled
says,
eggs.
how high can Bunny jump? He can jump a couple feet up. He's a pretty small bunny.
He jumps up onto my lap without the slightest difficulty
Difficulty.
whatsoever from the floor. He's just like boom. When you least expect him, he's so quiet he sneaks up and you don't know he's there, and then all of a sudden, boom! You have a rabbit landing on your lap.
Or on your cat.
Which isn't too bad because he's not too heavy. That's right, he did that one day.
Yeah, we like a smaller bunny. There are some very large bunnies out
Yeah.
there.
But our cat is too heavy. He
Yeah.
walks on us, it's like, oh, stop that!
He has sharp, pointy feet, and he puts all of his weight on one foot, and so it's like
It's like, stop that! You're heavy. We
Yeah.
have a very long cat.
he is long.
He's long for a cat.
He's long for a cat. But yeah, and I was watching a video the other day. Someone was videotaping their bunny jumping up and into a waste paper basket. He just like went up and landed straight in the basket.
Yep, perfect aim.
Yep, they have perfect aim. Barry says, hi Siofra and Ian, great to see you both. A bit of a random question, but any suggestions on tips for finding a spiritually clean, good house? We are house hunting.
That one's pretty tough.
Well,
You
my
better
recommendation is find a house
be
that
ready
you
to
really
cleanse
like
it.
and
Yeah,
cleanse the living
yeah,
daylights out of it when you get it. You can make it a clean
yeah. That's what we
house.
did with this one when we
Yeah.
bought it. Yeah.
And that can go for other things. Like sometimes used furniture can bring things into your house.
Yes.
I bought a hospital bed, and the first night I slept on it, I had a parade of old people walking around my
Well,
bed.
don't forget what happened to Lilith
Well, yeah, I
from
was
that
going to bring
chair.
that up
Yeah.
too, but I mean, I was laying on this mattress, and all these old people were walking around my bed all night. And I woke up in the morning and I'm like, okay, there's a number of people who have died on this bed. So I got rid of the mattress and I got a new mattress. So yeah. And we did. We had a friend here in town who bought a used wheelchair that had never been used by the person initially that it had been purchased for, but they had been fitting it to him, and he was very attached to the idea of what the wheelchair represented was freedom for him to be able to be mobile and move around and stuff like that. And he died before he got to use it. And he went with the wheelchair. And she bought it and brought it to her house. And oh, they had like banging and stomping and clawing and all sorts of activity. Suddenly they had like poltergeist activity, which was insane. So she called me up and says, "Help!" So I went over there and figured out what was going on and helped him cross over so that he wasn't attached to the chair anymore. And then we drained the chair. I used my banishing wand and drained the negative energy out of it and took it out of the house so that it was okay. But it was interesting because that was something I'd never come across before, and sometimes you don't know. So knowing how to cleanse something is important because although you might find a house that's perfectly wonderful, brand new, no one's ever died in it, but they built it on a piece of land where there was a big, huge battle in the
Yeah,
past.
there's all
So,
kinds of things.
yeah,
Yeah.
all sorts of potential
Potentially.
there. Um, and I've definitely cleansed a number of houses so that they feel better when you're done. And that's part of claiming it as your space once you get it. So good luck. Gabrielle says, hello, lovelies. Hi, Gabrielle. Carla says, beats. Yes, I figured that. Carla says, hi, Jen. Hi, Jono. And hi, Angel Girl. Gabrielle says, I'm calling my cat Edward Scissors Hands sometimes as a nickname. I get that. Yes, they do have sharp toes.
Yeah,
Carla
our
says,
cat is careful. We don't let him play. We don't let anybody play with him with their hands, so he doesn't get into scratching. But he's just sharp enough. He pokes you by accident, or when you're walking to the kitchen in your bare feet, and you decide you're going to give him food, and he runs like crazy and runs over your foot and like injures you by accident.
yep. Uh, Jen says, hi, Carla. And Carla says, hi, Teresa. And Teresa says, hi back, Carla. And Charity says, happy Easter. Happy Easter, Charity. Gabrielle says, haha, parade of old people. Yeah, it was definitely. Jono says, good question, Fairy. I would try to get friendly with whatever house you find. I don't know if there's such a thing as a sterile house. Even a new house has the energy of pissed off builders in it.
True.
That's a good
Whoever
point.
built it, yeah, always
Yeah.
has the energy of the builders. So, yep,
And
very
then,
true.
yeah, imbued in the wood.
That's
And
why if you buy something and turn it into a talisman, or something like that, you should, even if you just buy the blank metal and then you engrave it yourself and everything, which is more ideal, you should always cleanse it off anyway, because you've still got all the people energies from all the people who handled it in the factory and who made it, whatever store it went through. You bought it at a hardware store or whatever.
yep, it's always good. Jono says, hi, Carla. Martina says, happy Easter, everyone. Hi, Martina. Happy Easter. Barry says, thank you. That's super helpful. Follow up question: how did you guys cleanse your current house? Any and all methods? Well, I mean, I have a whole list of things that you can
And
do.
physical cleaning always helps if you do like repainting and remodeling and stuff. That's a good start. That's only a start, though. You should go and clean it out probably with the cedar boughs and stuff like you recommend
Right.
usually.
Yeah, I have a video called Ghost Proofing Your House, which is a good way of cleansing your house of negative energy. It's got all the different steps in there for first getting rid of any energy that might be bad out of your house, and then sealing the house up for making sure that there's no,
And the,
unwelcome ghosts that come wandering in, especially if you're a household full of psychics and so forth. You can attract ghosts from the neighborhood and the area, and then filling the house up with positive energy and claiming it as your own.
and which is how we did it. We used cedar boughs, and you put them in some water, some hot water, and let the smell permeate. And there's a thing they say, make pentagrams at all the windows and corners and mirrors and drains and things to
Yep.
seal them all up. Yeah. So
Yeah, and I
it's,
go
it's
through
all
that.
in that video there.
Yeah, I go through that step by step in the video, ghost proofing your.
Yeah. And that's pretty much what we did. And then we did the positive aspects. We put some rocks in the corners and some protective items on the property and things like that too.
Yep.
Was also recommended.
Things in the yard, things in the garden.
Don't do what a friend of ours did one time. He had some nice rocks. I think they were nice big obsidian rocks or something. He buried them for protection, and then when he moved, he wanted to take them with him, but he couldn't find them again,
Mark
even
them.
though they were good size. Yeah, if you do that, if you plan on retrieving them, which I don't recommend so much, I guess, just leave them there. That would be my recommendation. I think you move out of place, leave them there, and get some new stones for wards.
Right.
But
It's funny.
yes, he
it's
did have that problem,
yeah.
though.
It's interesting though, because I've seen posts where people are going like, "I found this buried in my yard. Does this mean that I have a curse on my land or something?" And usually it's a protection thing.
Yeah.
So sometimes other people will find it and freak out
Yeah.
and go like, "Oh
Of
no!"
course, if it's just like an obsidian stone or something.
Well,
then
yeah,
they
that'd be
wouldn't worry
different.
about anything. It's
Probably
like,
not.
Oh, look at this cool chunk of obsidian.
But they find like the witch's bottle or the shoe filled with
Yeah.
with stuff in the attic and all this other things. There's a lot of different homegrown folklore magic kind of stuff that's pretty popular, even if someone is not a practicing witch. So, yeah, it's interesting. But yes. Fairy says, "Thank you, Jono. That's a good point. Didn't think of that. Haha." Sadie says, "Hello. Hi, Sadie." Teresa says, "A house full of psychics. That's a picture." Well, yeah. Carla says, "It sounds weird, but I made friends with what I consider my house spirit. This is an apartment, so I just let it know my family and I are here now. Seems to work well." Yeah. Jono says, "Siofra talks about myriad things, but ghost proofing and boundaries are a staple. Luna and I spoke about that a few hours ago. It's boring, but Siofra is correct. She doesn't want to tell us how to become werewolves." I know. That's one of my favorite questions that someone asked me once, was how they could become a werewolf. And I'm like, find a werewolf and have them bite you. That's the only thing I can think of. Gabrielle says, "I have a rude lady ghost, a disembodied voice and all that. Quite judgy, so I'm like, 'Get out of my place, you nosy bizzle,' and I tell her to go fly a kite." Barry says, "Thank you for the advice. So incredibly helpful. I will find the ghost proofing video." Yeah. And, it is, like Jono says, it's a staple. It's, and it works. It just works really well. It's just a very basic kind of ritual. I got that one from Starhawk, and it works quite well. Some of the other parts are things that I've added to it, like the cedar bough I learned when I lived up north. That would be something that the natives up there would do to get rid of death energy. So if someone ever died on the property or in the house, that settles that energy out and makes it leave or ground it out, however you want to think of it.
And you can feel free to make your own little modifications to the ritual too. Just keep in mind the main things and what you're doing. If you were to substitute cedar boughs with like a little thurible and some incense in it, and sense it instead with something instead of using the cedar boughs, that type of thing, that would work good, like some frankincense and myrrh or something. Or
You could do that too, though.
cedar boughs is nice. And
It's more specific for the.
It's easy and it doesn't smoke you out.
Yeah.
And all that.
It's steam, and unless you're allergic to cedar. I've met one person once who was allergic to cedar, so always make sure that you're not allergic to any of the ingredients you're going to be using in a ritual, because they can always be modified one way or another. So Teresa says, "I found a knife buried along the perimeter of my property. I think previous owners may have put it in as a ward. Are there locations that are more prone to ghosts? I used to work in a residence that had several ghosts living there. It was along a river. I think that it depends on the age of the property, um, and what happened there. I mean, there's obviously some locations that are going to have a lot more ghosts than others, just because the places that were nursing homes or hospitals or mental wards or whatever, where there's a large number of people, or just extremely long history where there's a likelihood that people have died there, and there's always a chance. Not every person who dies becomes a ghost, obviously. So, but no, I don't think it's a matter of location so much as like what was happening in the person when they passed, what makes someone become a ghost rather than just cross over. Sadie says, that is something I could put on the floors or use to clean the floors to kind of seal the deal from cleaning the house before I burn my Palo Santo and then follow up by sweetgrass. Is
Yeah.
that something?
Well,
There's several things you can use for floor cleaning. The Forties vinegar is good for that, for getting rid of negative energy, and for sealing the floors
yeah,
as far
that's
as it
kind of
goes.
what I was thinking.
Yeah, and you certainly could use cedar water if you wanted to use it to wash the floor. Put it in the thing and steam it a little bit to get the scent going, and you could use it to wash. That would work. Marcia says, how do you know that there are ghosts if you can't see them? Well, depending on the ghost, if you're sensitive, you can feel their presence. They have their own thoughts and emotions, and it sort of goes along with them wherever they happen to be, and then you'll sense them. Some of them, though, make noises, footsteps, knocking on walls, knocking things over, making the hair on the back of your head stand up. Uh, yeah.
Yeah, I've got a perfect example for that. Yet it wasn't a ghost, but the same idea. Um, what had happened was I kept noticing books from my bookshelf kept trying to knock over my. I had a magic lamp, so called, on my altar, and um, I noticed books and things kept trying to knock it over. Books would fall off the wall and try and knock it over, and these other things. And I actually come into Siofra one day and I asked her, I said, everything's been trying to knock over my lamp. I don't get it. It was really puzzling me. And then eventually I decided to relight my lamp, and I took the lid off it. It was an oil lamp, to put some more oil into it. And this little creature came zipping out of it. And I was like astonished. And I asked it, what are you? It said it was a fire pixie. And I didn't know such a thing existed. I've never seen a fire pixie before. And it left and it made this nice pattern, and it zipped around and made like this little decorative pattern in the air as it went. And I never had any more things trying to knock my lamp over. Apparently, it had gotten caught in my lamp and wanted to get free. And I don't know, but the idea is that things like that, it was some type of little fire spirit that got caught in my lamp, and it was causing these issues to try and escape. And so sometimes just inexplicable things will happen. And I had no idea. I didn't have a clue that something could actually I don't know why it could get caught in my fire lamp. I guess it must have come in it, and then I
Blew out the
flame
fire.
or something.
Or
I don't
something.
know. I really have no logical explanation for that one, except that you can tell and figure things out, and then if you're around that, you generally start getting sensitive to it, and you start sensing things. Feel a presence or what have you. Yeah, unless you can get the mental pictures, you start seeing them mentally.
Yeah. The other time, like, you may have a house that doesn't seem to have any ghosts, and then you start to renovate the house. And if you do have ghosts, they're going to show up because uh, spirits like that, they don't like change. And so if you like knock out a wall or, tear out something, there's a likelihood that it's going to
You
increase
can stir
activity
them
or
up. Yeah.
stir them up and make them notice that, hey, wait a minute, what's going on to my environment? So. Gabrielle says, I'm going to do the ghost proof of my house again. Sometimes it takes practice to establish those boundaries. If the ghosts are polite, I don't mind them as much, but this ain't a train station. Yeah.
And if you're doing that, you're not just keeping out ghosts, you're keeping out negative entities of
Right.
any sort type of thing. It's a more general protection than just from ghosts.
Yeah, it keeps evil and negative energy out. That's sort of, the whole point of it. So it's setting your first set of boundaries is the house itself becomes like a sacred space, circle, or what have you, to protect you from things that you're not interested in interacting with. And it also lets the spirits around the area know who you are and what you're doing. And by the level of your ability to do it and how much it shows up on the other side gives them clues as to who you are and that kind of thing. So yeah, I did see once. I went in the mental plane after we did a house when we were traveling, and we were staying at a hotel, and I went to look to check the house to make sure that I hadn't forgotten anything. I went and rewalked the house on the mental plane, but as I approached it, I could see all the pentagrams I'd drawn. I could see them clearly visible. So that was kind of interesting to see that from that point of view. Definitely different. Sadie says also, thank you guys for hosting this. Hope you and your family are all doing well. Pretty well. Yep. Sister is getting better. She's home. Her kidney is draining probably for the next 4 weeks or so. And then once they get the blood infection under control, they're going to do surgery to take out the kidney stone that's blocking her function completely. So she's still in for the long haul. So I'll post her actual address later for her home. And if you guys want to continue to send her energy periodically, that'd be great. But everybody else seems to be doing fairly well. Sadie says, I saw a funny picture on Facebook where it had Jesus with box and gloves, and the Easter Bunny was boxing gloves, and it was like boxing flyer for an event. It was funny.
Jesus versus the Easter Bunny. All
I
right.
see. Okay. Give me back my day. Jen says, can you talk about the use of drums in spirituality? What is their function, and how should one use them without getting into the terrain of cultural appropriation? Drums are in every culture, so I am not worried about. To me, okay, my definition of cultural appropriation follows. Cultural appropriation is pretending that you have the right to do someone else's ritual the way they did it, and you claim a certain amount of authority for doing those said rituals. So if you were like trying to do a traditional Native American ritual with the drums, with the four people that are sitting there and doing the thing, or the drums that Santeria uses in order to call in the different deities and so forth, and you're not trained in that tradition, that would be more of a cultural appropriation. Drums are universal. Everyone on the planet Earth has done drums one way or another, even if it's just smacking a pot and making a sound. So I don't think that the use of drums themselves could be rise to that level. It's a musical instrument. It's a sound that you're making, and different drums are going to have different sounds. And so as far as that goes, I wouldn't worry about it. And drums are good for raising energy if you if you have someone in the group who is aware of how the energy is moving. The difficulty with using drums in raising energy is the lack of awareness of a lot of the drummers as to how the energy rises up to a peak and then it falls down. And in drumming, that's a natural
You have to
progression.
know when to stop.
You have to know when is the last beat you should make. If you're using it for ritual, that's what you need to do with a drum. You need to have someone there who's guiding the energy and like makes some sound or movement or some indication that now is the time for all drummers to stop. And the silence after drumming is just as powerful as the drumming itself. It really gets into your bones. It helps. It's a sound that permeates your body and your energy and so forth, and so it can be very, very powerful to use for that. So those are the things I have to say about drums at the moment, anyway. Teresa says for floor washing, ammonia is often recommended. Oh, that would be very hard on your nose. I would not recommend it. I think vinegar, the Fourth East vinegar, is much more pleasant. Ammonia is like harsh, but that's everybody has to decide what they want to use. Gabriel says, Marcia, I can see, feel, hear, and smell different spirits. I'm still learning how to discern. I think getting to know your own energy helps you to tell. That's true too. Good. It's a good answer. Barry says, very good to know. I didn't realize how powerful cedar was. Sadie says, okay, thank you. You're welcome. Gabrielle says, one male ghost was an elderly man who was hilarious. He gave me an unsolicited advice about finding a husband that's good at housekeeping because I'm messy. Basically, the ghost told me to touch grass. He felt sorry for me because I was isolating. Oh, poor guy. He meant well, but he's probably from a different tradition. Completely. And Jono says, I'm more worried about the energy of a place than ghosts. If there was any kind of intense suffering there, then I think it stains the place and it can be difficult to remove that stain.
Yep.
Yeah, and there's no doubt about it. I've been able to do that successfully in a few places, but it's not easy. And yeah, Harry says, interesting point, John. I wonder what can be done about negative energy stains. Harry says, I'm looking forward to Siofra's response to me. Lots of cleaning, I guess. Well, interacting with the land guardian, acknowledging what happened to the place. With a lot of those kinds of situations, the use of Apache tears seems to be a good one that the land responds to, something similar depending on where you live. Some kind of a stone that has an association of recognition of loss and sorrow, letting the land grieve and acknowledging where it's at helps it to heal. That's definitely part of it, just like with people. It's like ignoring it or trying to make it go away doesn't seem to work very well. And then giving it something positive, like, planting some stones there to bring positive energy in to the area to try and heal it. Of course, the amethyst crystal web is doing a pretty good job of healing some of those places like we did in Krakow. So if you have a specific spot you want us to focus on, then you can tell us where it is and put some amethyst around it, and we can put the amethyst energy there to help cleanse it, because we were really quite surprised at how much it helped that power spot in Poland, especially with all the horrible negative things that happened there. So anyway, Marcia says, I do feel things coming in and out of areas of my body when I'm falling asleep, or that wake me up often. Could that be them? Maybe something else? I don't know. I mean, it's a possibility, but it's probably not ghosts. It, it could be energy moving, and a lot of times, since energy seems like it's coming from an external source, we think of it as outside of ourselves. Like the Kundalini often feels external when it's not, it's an internal process. So, not knowing all the specifics, yeah, don't worry too much about it, but do what you can to protect yourself and cleanse your own energy and so forth, and create your own boundaries against intrusion. I've been having some very strange dreams lately, so I think something's coming. Another something. Just what we need. Jen says, thank you. Gabriel says, can do a weekly routine of helping ghosts to cross over, your white candle ritual. Can that be a good thing for neighborhood ghosts since they keep trying to visit? I want to help a little bit. Yeah, maybe. Do it outside of your house, though. Do it outside, maybe. So you're not inviting them into your house just in case they're not ready to go. And yeah, there are neighborhood spirits that are wandering around for a long time, and some of them you can help, and some of them are just not ready for help or for whatever reason. Gabrielle says, but want to have reasonable boundaries and not feel like I have to help. Yeah, and you don't have to. We have a Native American spirit down the street. I've never gone to try and help her. I just see her from time to time. She doesn't seem to, she seems to be here for her own reason. So it's like, generally when I get involved, it's because humans and ghosts are inhabiting the same location and it's not working out. And it's actually kind of surprising when people who don't believe in ghosts or magic end up in a haunted house and have their reality rearranged rather dramatically sometimes. They don't respond well to that situation. Kind of like that house I had in Saskatchewan that I got along fine with the ghost. He didn't bother me at all, but after we left, no one else could ever live in that house again for longer than like a month. So, Ben says, can you share your dreams? I started dreaming about volcanic eruptions, and that was a surprise, because usually, like, when I've got conflict coming near me activity-wise, this tornadoes. And then after I woke up, I realized that I've had volcano dreams in the past, but I can't remember the circumstances now, so what was going on. So I'm thinking that volcanoes mean something bigger, something under coming up. And it could have to do with our current political climate and all the other stuff that's going on right now. And I'm just sort of seeing it in my dreams. Um, yeah. There was also, yeah, there was funny stuff going on in it that I have no clue as well. But Gabrielle says they'll all ultimately be okay, so I don't have to worry about them. Right. Someone will take care of them at some point. They will be fine. Sadie says, I watched something that said that basically over 90% of all recorded religion has some sort of serpent symbolism in it. And I've always had an extreme fear of snakes ever since I was a child.
Well, yeah, a lot of religions consider it
Evil.
Well, American religions consider it evil. A lot of other religions don't. They consider snakes to represent wisdom and knowledge and enlightenment and things
And
like
regeneration, rebirth.
Yeah, regeneration is a big one, yes.
Yeah, the shedding of the skin, the coming out brand new
Yeah.
into a new body, getting stronger and stuff like that is very symbolic for that. Carla says, Siofra, are your dreams fragmented? Well, some of them. Sadie says, my question is, do I go against my intuition or what's happening with that? I don't think it's right to fear something without knowing it, but at the same time, this is a physical reaction that happens. Well, that is really going to depend upon you and what you want to do, because...
Well, and you should have a certain amount of physical fear of poisonous snakes. I mean, let's face it, that's just kind of normal. If it's garter snakes that bother you, something that's harmless, then that's something you need to think about. But healthy fear of rattlesnakes, in Oregon is a good idea, especially if you're in the higher areas, desert areas.
Yeah, definitely don't going to go play with a rattler because they're cantankerous and they're kind of grumpy. They don't want to be touched. But fear of snakes is a pretty common phobia. A lot of people have them. I had a garter snake for a while, so that was kind of interesting to find out how strong their muscles are and how not slimy they are, because there's that idea that some people have they're going to feel a certain way and they don't. They're very dry and very strong muscularly speaking. Yeah, so I don't know that it could be something from a past life. It could be just something you absorbed from this one. If you're not having to expose yourself to snakes all the time and deal with it, you might not want to bother trying to overcome it. I'm sure there are therapies that you can go to if you really wanted to do that. Exposure therapy is probably one of the biggest ones that they use for those kinds of phobias, I think. But don't think any less of yourself if you're having a hard time with snakes. It's like lots of people are afraid of spiders too.
And as far as that goes, you might have had an experience in childhood. I'm not afraid of snakes in that way. Like rattlers, like I say, stay away from the poisonous ones. But I did have several experiences as a child where snakes apparently terrified me. I was told later that I was like screaming my head off, and one was under the porch right beside me, a big old rattlesnake.
That would be startling.
I was a very small child, like a couple of years old or something.
Like Hercules.
Yeah,
strangling the snake in his bed.
But there could be natural causes for it too. So it all depends. Yeah, whether it's worth bothering with or not.
Marcia says, "Thank you. You're welcome." Daisy says, "I just want to make sure I'm not being closed-minded." Gabrielle says, "Yeah, I need to take care of myself and have boundaries for now. I'm just going to kick the ghost out or ask their angels to get them. Come get your human, please."
Yeah.
Donna says, "Oh no, volcano dreams don't sound like a good thing. If there was a funny, weird stuff going on in the dream, then that also tracks because the waking world is weird funny right now." Yeah, it is.
I'm afraid I see more of the weird and less of the funny.
Yeah, it's just definitely strange. Strange realities. We're watching Da Vinci's Demons right now. It's on Amazon. And we watched it previously when it first came out. And I was having a blast watching the episode yesterday where he discovers that the sun is the center of the solar system and that Venus doesn't go around Earth. And watching him make the realization and the leap to figuring it out. And so we're watching this, and I'm going like, "Wow, this is great." And Ian says, "Yeah, some people still don't think the Earth is round." I said, "I know, it's just so sad." And we have space, we can like be in a spaceship and go all the way around the planet and see the whole thing turning under us, and yet some people think the Earth is flat, just like they used to way back in the old days. But older days, they knew it was round. So we've gone back and forth apparently with that. Sometimes it's round, sometimes it's flat. It all depends. I don't know, but yes, yeah, we're enjoying watching it again. I rather enjoyed that program. So, and he has lots of like mystical stuff happening in his head. I like the actor; he does a great job. But the volcanoes is like it's just it. I was close enough that I saw it. It erupted several times in a row, but it never got like the whole place. It didn't go down the entire mountain. It just like spewed out of the top. Um, and then it did it like 3 or 4 more times. After that, I was close enough to see it happen, but not close enough to be hurt by it. The other one I had was more extensive, where it was the whole area that had volcanic activity going on in it, and I was trying to get away from that, but that was quite a long time ago. It's interesting the landscapes you have in your dreams. I have places I visit, like there's shops in my dreams and towns in my dreams, and parts of the road that I recognize when I'm in that dream. I'm going like, I've been here before. This is like the same neighborhood, the same hill, and the same house, and what the heck? So it's kind of interesting the inner palaces that you make in your brain, the dream palaces. Jana says, I like snakes. I had a corn snake for a few years as a teenager. I picked up a few to move them away from people. I don't think snakes are necessarily evil, not like cats. I love cats, but they can be evil. Sadie says, one more thing, too, I found interesting is that they say domesticated house cats have slitted pupils along with snakes, but not all reptiles have slitted pupils and not all cats have slitted pupils. I don't know. I've not actually looked into that. But then goats have square eyes and rectangle eyes, and so do sheep, which looks very strange. Barry says, oh, I totally agree. Every time I see the news, I feel so overwhelmed. Such strange times. Jen says, how do we all live together? Apparently not very well. And that's the thing. It's frustrating because it shouldn't be that hard. But, diversity and empathy have become curse words now.
Yeah, that sucks. That
Yes.
sucks that they literally become curse words and that they're being removed, all that ridiculous stuff. Not that we want to talk about that.
No, we don't need to talk about that.
Changing the name on the Enola Gay.
Oh, I know.
So lame. Sorry.
Well, they just took it out. They didn't change the name.
Well,
They removed the picture of it to eradicate it from history, but still, the whole thing
just
was
as
stupid. The whole
Yeah.
thing was just plain stupid. Marcia says, do you have any tips for teas or herbs we can take to help us having less fragmented dreams? Perhaps a prayer intention or call a specific helper? You can do dream work. You can program yourself to have lucid dreams. If you want to have vision dreams, you can use wormwood. Wormwood's one of them, but mugwort.
Mugwort, yeah.
Mugwort was what I was thinking of.
Mugwort, I know that at least some of the Native Americans, Medicine Lake Grizzly Bear used it for vision quests. And apparently they'd moisten it and wear it under a headband, let it get absorbed into the skin, I guess. They do that while drinking acorn tea.
It'd be very bitter acorn tea.
Well, and I guess, you have to prepare it properly, is
Yeah.
all he says about it in the book.
Yeah, I think there's a whole, like, the first water you throw out, stuff
Yeah.
like that. Anyway, but yeah, we don't know much about that. And then parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme is a vision tea. You can mix it together in equal parts and drink that. Yeah, mugwort pillow under your bed for dreams. Remembering your dreams makes them less fragmented, so you end up more with narrative storylines and you remember more of your dreams. Yeah, so there's a few things you can try. Gabrielle says, someone tried to proselytize to me, and I said no. And the distress that lady went into as she avoided my eyes afterwards was palpable. They really don't like to be shut down, do they? Marcia says, I have that too. Continuous dreams with different stories in town since a kid. Yeah. Donna says, Marcia, maybe experiment with chamomile or mugwort or valerian tea before sleep. Yeah, and valerian tea I don't recommend because it's not very tasty and smells like dirty socks. But maybe you like the flavor. It's a possibility. Um, but you can take it as a supplement. You can get it and take it that way. And for some people, it gives them nightmares. It has the same potential side effects as melatonin and kava kava. Fortunately, they don't give me that side effect, but I have that nasty side effect with melatonin and with kava kava, and I can't do those. So knowing your body is going to be vitally important because your own peculiar brain chemistry is going to make a difference in how your body responds to it in dream state. So always keep that in mind as well. Teresa says acorn tea you can have to keep boiling them and changing the water till the water runs clear. Yeah, that's what I thought. Gabrielle says, I've had the thought forms of the cult in my town float into my place. How do you ground out thought forms? I heard you talk about it a few times, but I can't remember how you said to do it. Yeah, I was thinking about that just today, actually, and yesterday. And I realized I just tell people to ground out the thought forms. It's just, I don't know exactly how to explain it, but you see the thought form and you visualize it going down into the earth until it disappears. It's like literally grounding them out. It's not yours. I've had this happen to me a number of times. I had it happen to me in Big Sur when I was there, and the guy left his hallucinations wandering about, and I was getting annoyed with them, and I ground them out. They kept coming back because he had so many, but I could ground them out for a period of time. I had my housemate that was sending me thoughts, and her thought forms were coming in to my room, and I saw them, and I ground them out, and then they kept coming back, and then I realized they weren't mine. So then I realized they were hers, and I sent them back. So the mirror thing you can use to send thought forms back to the source so that they're not bothering you. Grounding out is easier to do on your own thought forms, but I think could be done on anyone's. And you can just take them, it's like they are made out of mental energy. So you use your mental energy to just make them go into the earth, let the earth come up and grab them and pull them away.
Yeah, you could also use if you have tools, um, you know, like one of the things we do is put a grounding wire around our beds. Mine isn't there right now, but the grounding wire tied to an othamy that's stuck into the floor at the end of the bed, and charge that up to ground out anything that comes to you at night while you sleep. So that kind of idea is an othamy or something, and you can connect it energetically to the ground.
Yeah,
It
we have
doesn't
that
have
around
to,
our beds
yeah,
to
it
help
doesn't have
us.
to be physically stuck in the ground, but just energetically connected through your visualization and imagination that's grounding it all out, and the earth is taking it and getting rid of it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
Teresa says, I used to take valerian with chamomile. Jen says, my question didn't post. I was saying that a lot of astrologers are saying our human consciousness is getting ready for the big upgrade, but what will happen with the really low vibrational types? Well, for one, I'm not sure if it's true, and I don't know what will happen with the low vibrational types if it does happen. They'll probably get worse before they get better. That seems to be what's going on right now. We're getting more and more separate from each other when it comes to, you know, finding the commonalities between us. I don't know. Um, it's an individual process anyway, so I don't look to see like all of a sudden everybody's waking up. I mean, it takes a lot of stuff happening for large groups of people. The 100th monkey is probably more of a better example of that. When enough people realize that something is wrong, then mostly everyone will realize that it's wrong and wonder why they ever thought that it was a good idea in the first place. So that sort of on the subconscious, unconscious of the entire human race, it can affect that. So every one of us that becomes more clear and more capable, more discerning, better boundaries and so forth will help the collective whole in that sense, because we will impact that larger humanity of the collective unconscious that's out there, which would be the best solution, I think. Is the better way of looking at it than thinking of us versus them. Everybody is in a different place, there's no doubt about it. And some people are not ready to embrace their own responsibility for taking care of their own stuff and are projecting it onto others. So we can show by example what it's like to take responsibility for your own stuff and deal with your own darkness and turn it into an asset instead of a liability. And maybe they'll figure it out. I don't know. I hope. Gabrielle says, okay, thank you. I've been bothered by the cult's thought form last week. Marcia says, thank you. Gabriel says, so it's using will and visualization. Got it. Yep. That's definitely it. Yeah, that's the thing is we want to avoid things that make us feel separate from other people as much as we can, because that's not going to help the overall in the long run. But it's hard to avoid considering the dichotomy that's happening at the moment, the split between how people see things, even exactly the same thing, and interpreting them in opposite directions. It's just very bizarre. But, I'm really proud that the Amethyst Crystal Web is helping me and several others that have started to try to stay in it more, helping me deal with all that. Yourself is your biggest responsibility. So Kate says, hello, this is very off topic, but I vaguely recall you talking about the Fae in a past live you did, and I was wondering if you know anything about the Gaelic. I think it's an Irish word, and I think that I'd have to look it up. Not
something I know anything about.
It might be one of the Irish goddesses. I'm trying to remember. But it's been a while, so not off the top of my head. Haley says, hey y'all, I miss these a lot because life, but love these. Hey Siofra and facts. Yes. Hey Haley, glad to see that you're here. Gabrielle says, I'm thinking the collective ego is crashing out. That's why people are clinging onto egoic mindsets all the harder. People seem more testy. Trying to detach from my own egoic mindsets and mind my business. Yeah. Haley says, do you ever work with your ancestors? Any stories about it? No, I don't. But I did dream the other night that I was going to Ireland, where my ancestors are from. So I thought that was interesting. I had a long, all-night dream about going to Ireland. So maybe I do have some kind of ancestor thing going on over there, but not in my more recent ancestor history. Definitely not. I definitely have strong Irish roots. Carla says, interesting things going on here. The two deliverance ministries seem to be fighting amongst themselves, with the town council sending cops to pick up a backer's wife over a $5 parking ticket. Haley says, mine too. Last name's O'Grady. Yeah. And I'm thinking, I've been talking about this idea recently. The next Amethyst Crystal Web, I'm going to get the geolocation information for, probably the first one will be the Scottish Amethyst Cavern that we know of, and turn these known amethyst caves into nodes on the crystal web, sort of like building our own ley lines and power spots, except with the amethysts, and let them charge up a little bit more. That seemed like that was something that came to me, and it seemed like a good idea, so we're going to focus on that next time. And for those of you who didn't get a chance to participate in it, I did put out the link for the first one, for the full moon, and I'll probably be doing it on the day before the full moon again, on the Friday, because the Saturday the moon will be coming to full, but then people won't be able to, it won't be as strong for people to participate the next day who are in a different time zone. So I'll probably do it on the Friday, and I'll post that out there so you guys can join. Haley says mine too, yeah. Gabriel says, is it normal to feel more spiritual activity near a river? I got near a river yesterday and felt the kundalini spinning like a cyclone, and it took a while to ground. I had to touch a tree. I was also attracting some spirits. Yeah, I think running water is really powerful for that kind of thing because water, the element of water is about intuition and spirit activity anyway, so it would make sense. And being by running water is just sort of, it naturally clears your aura, your energy out, I think, and makes you more sensitive, can make you more sensitive. One of the reasons why the willow works well for dowsing to find the waters because that attraction, automatic attraction to the movement and the presence of water, it puts up a nice energy. So, yeah, probably a good spot for you. Jen says, thank you, Siofra. You're welcome. But yeah, just doing our own thing and keeping ourselves as clear as possible, I think, is our best action. It's like we do what we can. And it's like I've planted a lot of seeds throughout my lifetime, apparently, and sometimes I find out what the seeds I planted grow into, and I planted one seed that turned into a healing center in Washington State that the person came down to visit us a number of years ago to tell us about. I met her up in the Kispiox Valley, so you never know for sure exactly how inspiring you can be to someone just by being yourself and encouraging them to become more of who they are. Because I think at our core, the religions tell everybody that they were evil at their core, and I think that's wrong. I think we're not evil at our core. I think we're good at our core.
Well, yeah, I agree. That's totally.
I think some people
Yeah.
are born
Don't
wrong.
give any credence to that.
Right. Some people are born wrong with things that aren't connecting correctly in their head and stuff, and don't have empathy, which I think is a bad thing. But I don't believe that we're born with this innate desire to be violent and mean and all this other
No,
stuff.
I think that's something the Christians want to think because it makes them, they have an easy solution. Just follow the Ten Commandments and the teachings of the church and stuff. But I don't think people aren't born that way. I think of the largest part of it, I think, is actually, the nature versus nurture thing. I think the largest part of it is the nurture effect mostly, or lack of nurture, abuse effect. But then there are genetic aspects, and some people are just born with brain malfunctions, like physical brain malfunctions and things. So
4% of the population are sociopaths. Yeah. Okay, so Haley says, what's this amethyst crystal web all about? I got here late, if you don't mind, of course. And yes, it's very divisive. Okay, the amethyst crystal web is something that I started 7 years ago. The idea of connecting all the amethysts on the planet together and charging them up for joy, peace, and tranquility, and putting the energy in there. We started it on basically Beltane in 2019 and or 2018, and then every full moon we activate it and charge it up more, and more people are putting their energy and attention into it, and the web has sort of taken off. It's like it's creating this really nice I don't know, undercurrent of peacefulness that we can start to tap into now. It's become strong enough. And I had a dream about the amethyst crystal web being like a pocket world in the desert. So when we're in the middle of this time when things are crazy and people don't seem to be acting like they should and don't seem to understand how to be a human being and stuff like that, we can avail ourselves of that soft energy and spiritual energy of the amethysts themselves. And so like I charge up my own jewelry. So I have a bunch of different amethyst necklaces that I wear from time to time, this being one of them right now. And I have an amethyst ring that I found and I wear pretty much every day, so that I can maintain a connection to that energy. We have videos. I gave the Amethyst Crystal Web Project its own playlist. There's only like 2 videos, one on how to do it and one on why we're doing it that way, that you can watch. And last month on the full moon, we just started doing a live Zoom that several people participated in. So we did it together at the same time and then offered it as a free Zoom that people could watch later to participate. We've used it for a bunch of different things, like one person contacted us and lives in Poland, in Krakow, and wanted to know if maybe we could use the crystal web to help the hill outside of town. That's like a power spot, because she's pretty sensitive and it was pretty negative, the energy from all the things that happened there in the past. And so we talked about that and came up with the idea of trying to help with that. And she went and planted small amethysts around the hill. And so that full moon, we pushed the energy and connected specifically to that hill to bring it that sense of joy, peace, and tranquility. And then she went and looked at it and went and walked it, and the energy had changed completely. So she recorded we had success. Not everybody does it the way I do it. I'm doing it definitely in a witchy manner, using the evoking pentagrams and traveling up through the planes, going from the physical plane to the astral plane to the mental plane and up into the Akashic, and then really spreading that out through time and space, connecting everyone and everything together, and then bringing that energy back down through the planes and into the physical, and imbuing that into the earth herself. And so it's become this whole thing. And it's starting to have an effect. It was one of these things that just sort of came to me to do. So Gabrielle says, yeah, people can only operate out of the level of consciousness they have, and that expression is affected by our bodies and upbringing. Haley says, beautiful. Gabrielle says, Eckhart Tolle talks about pain bodies. Some people have a very heavy pain body and no enlightenment, a recipe for hell, but if people are lucid enough, they can bring more awareness and transmute. Carla says, it's a Christian idea of original sin. They can't really explain it, because just being born is their original sin. My eyes are rolling so hard at this notion. I can see behind me. Yeah, same here. Haley says, amazing, so important. Yes, and anyone who wants to is welcome to participate in it. And then, you can charge up amethyst that you have. You can either plant an amethyst like at a town hall or a courthouse, or, a location in your community that you think needs to have some assistance. You can give it to a person. I have one hanging from my car as well that I charged up to try and take that with me to help me when I'm driving, when people are being stupid. And there's a lot of stupid drivers out there. And so, I can sort of take what they're doing and see what's happening and stay out of harm's way in the process. And you can charge up the jewelry and wear it and sort of connect to it. And the more you do it, the stronger it'll get. I have an altar that's set up with the amethysts in my room. And when I'm doing it on the full moon, I place all of my amethyst jewelry on top of the amethyst crystals when I'm charging them up. So,
in addition to what Eckhart Tolle says about the what he uses the expression the pain body, but basically you're talking about mostly the astral body in that circumstance, and you can he doesn't use magical methods, but doing a good cleansing, banishing of yourself, that's what you're doing, is helping to cleanse that stuff out of your aura, out of your pain body, the expressions that he uses, and clear a lot of that stuff up. And it's not very easy. You may have to repeat it a whole bunch of times, but it does help, and over time it can really clean up a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, you're sort of changing your stance and your relationship to the universe and your reactions to it and your
Yeah.
responses and stuff to stimulus that's coming to you. And you know, we have automatic reactions to things that have been ingrained in us, and most people never bother to look and see why. They don't pay attention to why they react a certain way to this or that stimulus, or you
Yeah.
know, if there's a
And
reason for that in their own
yeah.
history and past that they can deal with, and then not have that.
Yeah,
um,
that's a large extent what Eckhart Tolle deals with is he, like I say, he doesn't use magical methods, but more you might call them meditational methods to try and deal with some of that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, which is all a part of magic. It's
Oh
like we
yeah.
have a specific magical language that we're using, but magic in itself is like covers pretty much any everything when it comes to it. But I like the language that we use because it's a lot more precise, and it helps me to focus better.
Well, not only that, but it gives you a different methods to deal with things. I mean, the cleansings, and of course, Barden gives those. You can cleanse yourself off in running water. There's a ton of ways, just focusing on those things in your, in the term he used, your pain body, but those things in you and just wash them off and let them run off into the running water. And for running water, the colder it is, the better. If you're trying to get rid of those things, let it be pulled away by the natural magnetism of the water and things like that. But he deals with it more on a basis of letting go of those things and such, rather than washing clean of them and stuff. I think, but yeah, different methods to accomplish the same thing, basically.
So Teresa says, I'm going to gift a piece of amethyst to the fairy children and embed it in my flower garden. I'm sure they're going to love that. Gabrielle says, makes sense, guys. Haley says, society bias.
Yep.
Yeah, and every society has their own biases and stuff like that.
Even going to colors in our society, colors pink and blue, and then the light blue for for young boys, children, and then the severe reaction some people we know had to the color purple
Purple.
because I had a purple shirt that I liked, and boy, this woman like freaked out about it constantly just because it was purple. It's like it's a color like any other color. It doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean I'm gay. Doesn't mean I'm not gay. Doesn't mean I care. Either way, I just want to wear a purple shirt because I like the color.
Yeah,
But she couldn't accept that. It was always a big deal.
yep. She had a definite bias and didn't want to look at it at all.
And well, if I was going to do anything, it's like, oh, don't go to an interview with that shirt. They'll think you're gay. It's like, I don't care. So what if
So,
they do? I'm not gay. I'm hetero. But I don't care if people thought I was gay. It's not a thing for me because I don't have the homophobia, I guess.
which is
But
a good
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Carlos says, I put some chips in my sweetgrass, Teresa. Gabrielle says, I like all sorts of methods, whatever works. Haley says, black and white. Marcia says, how do you travel from mental plane to astral, mental, and so on? Is there a book you recommend? I don't know how to distinguish with clairvoyance. Yeah, and yeah, I don't know exactly how to explain. I don't know if there's a book.
Well, I recommend Barton stuff, of
Well,
course,
right,
but
but to explain what it's like to be in the different bodies. I mean, you have different bodies. You've got your physical body, your astral body, your mental body, and your spirit body. And being able to tell the difference between them is part of the process of learning more about who you are. The astral body is where all your feelings and emotions reside. So you can sort of tell something about what body you're in by how you're feeling in that sense. If you're feeling overwhelmed and things are intense and so forth, then you're probably in your astral body. The mental body is more about your thoughts, your clarity of thinking when you're in it in a good
yeah,
way.
if you observe things, they don't affect you as emotionally as they would if you're astral traveling.
Yeah. Mental travel is safer to do than astral travel when it comes down to it because of that. In the mental body, you're less emotionally affected by things, so you can like deal with things
Oh, yeah.
easier.
And mental body is timeless and spaceless, whereas the astral body is tied to space. So you have to physically travel somewhere. The mental body is where you get more of the clairvoyance and stuff, where you can see across, vast distances. The astral body, you have to travel there in your astral body, go visit someplace.
Yeah, so one of the ways that I visualize it or think about it is like my physical body is heavy and dense, and my astral body is less dense than my physical body, so it's lighter. And I think of it as being like a step away from my physical, so it's more, it's all energy and no physical matter, but it's just a step away from my physical body. And then my mental body is lighter still, and so that is like the lighter of the bodies there. And of course the spirit body is like, you can get travel through time and go anywhere and connect with things in your own past or future, or because time and space and doesn't exist, it's all time no time, and it's a lot harder for people to bring things back that um, from that body to this one down to the physical. So it's a matter of exploring the possibilities and trying things out. But I don't, except when Barden talks about them. But again, it's like
Yeah,
the specific techniques of
most people
knowing.
most people when they say they're astral traveling, in my opinion, are actually mental traveling because they don't distinguish. I think most of what people call and think of astral travel out there is mental traveling. Not all of it. I mean, it can happen, but mental travel is much easier than the astral.
Yeah. So Haley says, yeah, it's crazy, especially when political parties take color. Gabriel says, purple shirts are beautiful on men. I think so too. Haley says, Gabrielle, yes, pink too. I find any color on men. She, for any knowledge on herbs, I'm getting into them and learning. FYI, this is so interesting. I love it here. You're welcome and thank you. Um, there's a lot of information on herbs. If you want to study herbs, I would recommend Back to Eden by Jethro Kloss.
It's a very old book.
Yeah, it was written in the early 1900s, but he had a clinic, and it will tell you about the medicinal properties of herbs and the safety and hazards of using them and side effects and everything else. So it's a good foundation. When it comes to the magical uses of herbs, there's a lot of confusing information out there. You have to try and sift through different authors and mythologies and so forth, and then try it yourself to see whether or not it works for you. Again, always keeping in mind your own potential allergies to anything, because there's no one thing out there that works for everyone. Anyone can have an allergy to anything. There's even people who are allergic to water, which is like really bad to be allergic to water. So yeah, uh, use your brain and read mythologies for magical purposes about like what was the plant used for in a myth and so forth, and in different cultures and their associations with it. When I made my dream pillows, that's what I did. I did cross-cultural research into the stories about the different plants that I was going to use for the purpose, and I picked ones that seemed to be pretty much universal, as close as I could get them. Like almost every single culture felt this same way about this particular plant and what it represented, like roses was one of them. Um, so yeah, it's an exploration. There's a bunch of compendiums, like Culpeper, I think, has got a thing on magical herbs, and Cunningham has one. Um, and probably there's a lot of newer books that are out there that may be drawing on the same sources. So Ellie says, say that again. What's the name of the author and book? I'll type it up. Make it easier that way. Okay, there's the name of the book. And says, my comments aren't posting. Oh, Teresa says, do you think people who spend too much time in their mental body become detached from empathy and emotion? Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's why you need to ground. The physical body contains them all. Jen says, my comments aren't posting for some reason, but in regard to the amethyst crystal web and your Irish roots Siofra, I saw a video from a witch in Ireland yesterday that YouTube had recommended, and she mentioned in passing that there are natural amethyst deposits there in Ireland, and I immediately thought of you and the Crystal Web Project. Awesome. We'll have to look at some of those too. Oh, I know where the Scottish one is. We got a picture of that in our group. Gabriel says, "Oh yeah, I remember your wheatgrass story." Yeah. Carla says, "I think people who do too much vitamin K get detached." Haley says, "Thank you." Yes. Marcia says, "So by travel, you mean how it feels. I do have somatic responses. I thought you were perhaps projecting thought inwards and visuals or colors to indicate where you are." I'm actually trying to get into the body that I'm talking about. We do that in the amethyst crystal web. We're trying to bring up um, the amethysts from here up into our astral and mental and then spirit bodies and bring them with us, kind of thing, into the different planes and then bring them back down to make it real. Because anything you can actually get into the Akasha completely will manifest itself in physical reality. It may take time for it to happen because it has to go through that process. But everything that exists started somewhere else. It's like a thought of an invention starts on the mental plane, the creation, the drawing of the plans and stuff like that. The actual creation of the idea, getting the materials and so forth is, you know, um, the fire of focus and concentration from the astral plane, and then making it real makes it into the physical plane. So one way of looking at it. Jen says, "Oh, I love that book. I have a copy of that I've had for like 40 years." Yeah, me too. It's still the best one I've ever seen. The new PDF that they have, the PDR for herbs, the medical PDR for herbs, does not mention some of the side effects of some very important herbs, like plantain in particular. As I read through the chiropractor I worked for, I read through his herbal medical PDR, and I was like, it doesn't mention that this has a lot of vitamin K in it and will clot your blood. It's like, no, there's no side effects. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. So I actually corrected his copy. And I did it on Wikipedia. I haven't checked to see whether they've taken it down. But I corrected it there too. And I kept writing all these different companies because you cannot believe things just because you see them everywhere on the internet, because people just cut and paste and put them everywhere. And every herb company I looked at, not a single one of them had the side effects of plantain, that it can stop bleeding. That's one of the main uses that it was used for in ancient times. It's called soldier's herb. It was used as a field dressing on battlefields to staunch wounds when people were bleeding. I mean, it's really well known. And I wrote to all these people and they all ignored me. So I went to Wikipedia and got in and became an author and did an article on it. Who knows if it's still there. But yeah, that's why I like that book, because he knows the research. He's done it all. So Gabrielle says, "Can I make my own dream catcher? I heard there has to be a ceremony. I'm part indigenous, but I don't have the teaching or experience in my upbringing. I'm culturally American and mixed, so I take a more universal approach to my practices. But I'd love to have a good dream catcher. I made my own. I looked up the traditional method of how to do it. There's you can find it on a website. I think it's the Shoshone that do the dream catchers. I can't quite remember right now. But then I added my own tradition to it. So I put in 5 different stones into the dream catcher to like change a dream coming in different levels and different layers, going through the different. I did the 5 elements basically, and I wove them in a specific order so that the energy would go through each one as it came through the web, and it would hit each one. And I made one for me, one for my granddaughter, one for Ian. I think I made one for my daughter. I just did it for family. I wouldn't do that to sell to people, because then I would be concerned about cultural appropriation, because it's not my tradition, but I like the idea of it. And I always worry when I see people driving down the road with dream catchers on their windows, hanging from their mirror. I'm like, I hope you're not dreaming right now. You're driving. You shouldn't be dreaming. This is a bad thing. But, Haley says, "I'd probably just put an intention to it or look into your specific culture's history of it. Either way, it's better than store-bought. Highly doubt any ceremony with them." That's for sure. Gabriel says, okay, I'm going to look it up. Carla says, oh my goodness. I remember that stuff with essential oils when they started getting popular. No contraindications for people's meds. Sigh. Yeah, then they learned that using the oils on the skin went straight into your bloodstream. And for the practitioner, you know, for the person who's having it done once, there's not that much of as much of a risk. But for the person that's doing it all day, if they're not wearing gloves or washing their hands or whatever in between, yeah. And then I have my scent sensitivity too. Certain things just make my nose go nuts, so I tended not to use essential oils in my practice. I like the smells of a lot of things, but my nose doesn't. My nose is like, get that away from me. I think one of the worst ones is in the store when somebody walks through the store wearing patchouli and I can smell them from 5 aisles away. And I just go like, oh no, here it comes. Ah! They're surrounded by a cloud of woo woo. But yes, Carla says yes. Now go to a theater and sit in a theater with someone who's got a lot of smell on them. Gabrielle says, well, I had a leprechaun appear in my room and I'm not even Irish, so I thought it was funny. I think a nature spirit was just trolling me. Yeah, well, you know, they like to have fun. Carla says, again, with shaking my head in agreement like you can see me. You do that a lot, don't you? Yes, I do. I do that a lot. Yep, so I think it's great that we have as many people here, being a major religious holiday for a lot of people and family day for a lot of others. It's one of those things, you know. But hey, we have fun. One of the things that we like about this, we never know for sure exactly what we're going to be talking about till we get here. Yep, got to be prepared for anything. Carla says, I do, LOL. Do we have any other questions? We've got like a few minutes left. Then says, I've been reading a book about the Lakota Indian chief and medicine man, Frank Fool's Crow, and there's an anecdote in the book where the author describes Fool's Crow being able to pull actual eagle feathers out of thin air while performing a ceremony. He handed the feathers to the author. What plane would he have access to materialize feathers? Ian says the Akaja.
Yeah, there's some people like Sai Baba who can materialize things down. And that comes out of the Akaja, which is the plane of all causes.
And Teresa says, as far as I'm concerned, this is family time. Carla says, Sundays are the highlight of my week. Highlight of ours, too. At least most weeks. Unless we're sick, in which case we canceled, so then you didn't see us. Apparently I need more antihistamines. Gabriel says, also, when I saw an astral spider that gave me a smile after giving me a nightmare, I flipped him off. He looked like a goofy cartoon. I realized fear and stress can attract critters who stir the pot. That's true. And having that kind of reaction to it is a much better reaction than a fear one. Especially, you know, one of the first things I do is like, can this thing actually hurt me? If the answer is no, then why be afraid? Fear is useful if something's actually going to hurt you, and that gives you some energy to do something about it or lets you know that danger is about. But yes, Gabriel says, or Carla says, I do have a question, but too late for you to answer. When making a staff or wand, how do you carve the spiral down the length? I don't know. Mine came with the spiral in it.
Yeah, in a lot of cases, they're made from woods that have had a piece of
Ivy or
vine
vine.
grow around them when they're growing up, and then it grows into it, makes a spiral on it.
Yeah, my staff, obviously, it had parts of the vine still left in it when it was found, when I first got it. And there are companies that do that specifically. They'll actually grow small oak trees or something and wrap a vine around it in order to morph the wood into a spiral. But as far as carving it, I don't know. I'm not a wood carver. And my spiral is whatever direction it is the direction it is. So I don't even remember. I have to look at my staff to see which way it's going. Is it going this way, or is it going that way? Um, and I added stuff to the spiral. I added some gemstones and into the spiral itself, as well as put stuff on it, and hung things from it and whatnot. I was looking at it this morning with the amber ball in there, and that I made that um, copper dragon's claw to hold that amethyst ball, and had to put a pentagram amethyst or a pentagram of copper wire on top of it to hold it in place so it wouldn't fall out, because it kept trying to fall out. I had a real struggle trying to figure out how to attach that thing. So I wrapped that that foot that's holding that's holding my ball, my amethyst ball. Carla says, "Ooh, I love that, a vine and all natural." Gabrielle says, "It was hilarious looking. I rolled over and went back to sleep. It was a physical black cloud of dense energy that shapeshifted into that spider." I saw something the other day that looked like a cartoon character of a fairy. It was like, and I did laugh. I'm like, it was like definitely cartoonish. I'm like, okay, that's not right. We're being silly. But yeah, so. So as far as the length goes with the wands, it's like traditional length is supposed to be from your inside of your elbow to the end of your index finger. But for me, it's whatever feels right for the piece of wood I'm working on. Mine tend to be longer than that as an average. Carlos says, thanks for the information. I'll keep my eye out in the woods for natural occurrences. Gabrielle says, I addressed the stress in my body and haven't seen it since. I take things like that as information about what's happening in me and try not to be afraid. This is good. That is what you should do. Did you go to the protest yesterday, Teresa says. No, I didn't. I was going to, but I'm still recovering from that infection. So I decided not to. It was very cold wind, and I did not want to end up getting sick. So I didn't go. But I was pleased to see that lots of people still did. So I'm hoping one of these times I'll get out there. I was there in the spirit. My heart was with them. All right, guys. I guess it's time for us to go. As usual, it's been enjoyable. We're having a lovely time. So we'll see you all next week. And I'm going to see about getting some new videos up. I was going to do it this week, but I was falling asleep in the middle of the day, so I had to get better first. Ian says, blessed be, and thanks for your delightful conversations. And Gabrielle says, blessed be. Shay says, have a good week, all. Hi, Shay. Bye, Shay. Okay, guys. So we'll see y'all next week. You can always contact me if you need to.
Good week.